So this is basically the metaverse that the crypto bros don't want you to hear about, Entropia Universe, which this has been out since 2003, and most people, even people in the MMO world, may not have heard of Entropia Universe, because nobody really plays Entropia Universe. It's one of the first games that came out that was doing this whole real-world economy in a digital world thing, and it's been doing this entire time. It's been out for 20 years, and it's not taken off. And of course, you can look at this and say, you know, there's a clear reason as to why it's not taken off, and that's because it looks like this. It doesn't play very, you know, advanced. It's not a crazy mechanical game or anything. But I would argue that at the time it released, it was relatively like most other MMOs. It wasn't groundbreaking, but it was basically doing similar things. Now, of course, the reason I'm bringing this up is because a lot of people in play-to-earn gaming and crypto gaming and these metaverse projects like to say, this is the future, right? Digital ownership of your stuff, and it can only be done with crypto and blockchain technology. And this just proves that it doesn't. It's just another example. We don't need that. It's already existed. And we basically already decided that people generally, at least gamers, when presented with this option, don't want it. And it's just like the other examples of when people talk about things like a metaverse. We have VR chat, you know, we have Second Life, we have these other game worlds that function identically, and people can use them without being, you know, inconvenienced at all by not having to buy all these things that they don't want to and get involved in this technology that they don't really have any interest in. And of course, at some point, there might be a gap being bridged where the technology, you don't really have to interact with it, and it's so easy to use that people don't really mind all too much. But obviously, at that point, you're just asking yourself, why would you even need to transition from traditional database technology to blockchain? Like, what does it actually add overall, other than this idea of like interoperability, where you can take skins or assets from one game and put them in another one because you own them on the blockchain? Which again, developers already do this, and I don't think developers that are competing are ever going to do this. So the ones that are already can. We already see this in Blizzard's games, right? You get you buy a digital deluxe edition or whatever in one game, and it gives you skins and cosmetics and whatever else in another game. And they could expand that if they wanted to. They just don't, because a lot of the times it's just a waste of time. Because why would something in World of Warcraft have any relevance on Diablo or on Hearthstone, etc., etc.? The only other argument is that if you get banned or whatever, you still keep the assets and the game developers can't take them away from you. But this is already proven untrue in blockchain. We've already seen some of the biggest projects literally take things away from people, or just make it worthless, or essentially make it, you know, persona non grata, and nobody's going to touch it because it's a, you know, black asset or whatever. Which essentially means it's the same thing. You basically have the same centralized problems, I guess checks and balances is what we usually call them, but applied in a different way slightly. It's slightly different flavor, and that's supposed to be a selling point. I don't really understand how that makes sense. But obviously most people that are familiar with Entropia, or at least have heard of the name, will have seen this. And it's the top 10 list of video game items ever sold. And this one always got people real interested back in the day, because they'd see Entropia Crystal Palace, top 3 spots, Entropia Virtual Universe MMO, known for its unimaginable virtual transactions that have to do with a game's trading system that uses real money. A virtual space station dubbed the Crystal Palace was sold in the game for $330,000. Then Club Never Die was sold to $635,000, and then Planet Calypso was sold by the actual developers for $6 million. Now that's crazy, right? That sounds great as a, you know, fluff piece or whatever on the internet, or a cool clickbaity YouTube video. But in reality, do you know how people play Entropia and how few people play Entropia? And do you know why? It's because the actual core game mechanics of how most of these play-to-earn games are set up are not fun. Do you know most people who play this game are literally called, like, sweat farmers? Which sounds gross in and of itself, but it's basically exactly what it sounds like. They put money on the game to buy ammo, to go and shoot monsters for hours, to farm sweat, and then they sell sweat to other players, and then there'll be intermediary players who buy sweat for cheaper and then try to sell it for more. And then there's the people doing the really cool stuff in the game that costs tens of thousands of dollars, where they own literal land and people come in and they've decorated this place up and they're charging fees to come in and stuff like that, which is the selling point of most metaverses. If you were to take Earth 2, for example, an example that most people on this channel will probably be familiar with at this point, their whole selling point is you can play for free, you can be a sweat farmer, essentially it's the direct parallel, and then the other people who've spent a bunch of money, usually before the game is even made, so nobody even knows if it's worth spending money on in the first place, they just took the gamble and hope that it pays off. They're the ones who get to do the real cool stuff, and then maybe they'll rent something to you so you can have fun. And it's just a fundamentally misunderstood idea of how people play video games. So showing that we have an example here of exactly what they're trying to do, and let me just be clear, not all things are created equally. Not every single play-to-earn game is trying to be, we're going to sell everything, everything's a monetized, on-chain transaction, and everything's worth money. There are going to be games that come out that just sell skins. And realistically, they're the ones that are probably having a higher chance to take off. Things like Dr. Disrespect's game, well, I think it right now looks pretty bad. I probably will play it if people are interested on my take, since I played BRs forever, big into FPS games anyway, love extraction games. And it looks like eventually maybe that will come out, so it's probably worth looking at what it's like now. A game like that from a big name, whole bunch of money, just doing cosmetics, that has a fairly decent chance to succeed just because of all the things going for it. But the problem is, of course, that is right now, at least, the very small percentage of games where they're not doing, we're just going to sell everything. Because as I've said a million times, the best way to raise money, and this is true for Kickstarter as well, we've seen this, it's not just a crypto exclusive thing, when people want to raise money, the best thing to do is just sell everything. Just say everything's going to be amazing, it's going to be the best, it's going to be like nobody's ever seen before. That's going to sound much better in people's heads than being realistic. We've seen that's why Star Citizen will always raise more money than any other game, because the fantasy of how amazing it's supposed to be. It's why games like Chronicles Valeria would raise more money than if you just showed up and said, realistically, we can make this game and it's probably going to be okay, but it's not going to be anything too crazy. Because people want crazy. It sounds better in their head. The fantasy is always what sells people on things. And when you add in the benefit of like, these assets can go up in value, of course the companies that are trying to raise the most money lie about everything, or at least, don't be 100% truthful in their capabilities and how people will actually be able to do this in the future, and it'll make sense. We have numerous examples now. Here we go. Look, this is a perfect stock footage for this. We have numerous examples now of games that have done this exact concept. And most people, I'm not saying there's no audience, because to be honest, if you go through the forums, there's a couple thousand people that probably still play Entropia and have been playing on and off for 20 years. That's cool, man. Like, niche experiences, I think, should always exist, and they shouldn't change just because I won't play them. If there's an audience for this stuff, that's cool. But when you then say, this is the future, I honestly think that's like, you're taking in none of the evidence we already have. And if you even say that the reason nobody plays something like Entropia is because it's old and it's bad and blah, blah, blah. One, that wasn't the case at the start, and still it wasn't a very popular game. And two, most crypto games that are doing this are actually way behind Entropia is right now. So why would somebody stop playing League of Legends? Fortnite, which, by the way, Fortnite's doing some crazy stuff recently. World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy XIV, or even Second Life, Entropia if they're already into it. Any of these games that are already established, why would they stop playing those to come and play something that they're going to have to gamble heavy in, or basically pay the price later on that they can't have fun unless they're rich in real life? And that's why none of these like play-to-earn MMOs that are selling the stuff up front, in my opinion, will ever do well. Now, if you're going to show up with a game that sells nothing and maybe has just some cosmetics or something like some Kickstarter projects do, I'm more than willing to look at it and judge it based on the game. Although, of course, I'm always going to say forever, we don't need that stuff. We have it already. You could even, like Steam has, a marketplace that doesn't require this technology, that removes the buzzwords, and people are going to be more likely to get in on it, because that is a big factor as well. The buzzwords have just basically been sullied to this point due to how many scams there are, how obnoxious the fan base is, and generally just how people perceive this stuff. And I don't think it's ever going to play well. Though I do always say, of course, if a game comes out and it's just the best game ever made, it doesn't fucking matter what monetization is in it. People are going to play it, especially if it's not like so upfront and in your face that you basically have to swallow something very nasty to do so. But the issue is, of course, is we've seen nothing at all in terms of revolution or anything that would even be on par with what we've already got. And there are a few games people keep telling me to check out. For some reason, people keep telling me to check out Cornucopia, which I did, and then I googled it again, and there's no new gameplay, and they're telling me, like, Cornucopia is the future. I think it's the same fucking guy in every comment section just making new accounts. But I did just want to talk about Entropia because it is interesting as a concept. It's been around for so long. Nobody really seems to know about this unless you're an OG MMO person. You've been around the block a little bit. And it does just perfectly encapsulate why exactly nobody's going to really play into the metaverse. Because essentially when your time is monetized to the point where doing menial tasks and menial labor for somebody else is how you're going to spend most of your time in game, and you're never going to see all the other stuff. It's just real life simulator. There's billionaires flying everyone private jets, doing amazing things, doing all the drugs, and you're never going to get to do that. And you're already working for them in real life. So you're going to spend your time playing a video game where you're grinding for 50 cents an hour. I think this suspension disbelief is a real big thing for people in media in general. And this shit, I don't joke when I say is actual depression simulator in terms of just viewing your life through. I'm wasting my time doing something that's not even extraordinarily fun. And also, I can see with a dollar value how not valued my time is. Working for somebody else and never getting to the point where I'd actually want to be to have fun in a game, when I could just go play something else that I buy for $60 or pay a subscription fee or whatever, and it's just a good game, straight out the box. So yeah, it's probably a little bit longer than it needed to be. Again, sorry about voice, etc. Wisdom tooth removed yesterday. It sucks. But we'll get through it. And yeah, thanks for watching as always, and I'll see you next time. Peace out. Oh, before I go, actually, if you've got a suggestion of content, let me know in the Discord comment section, Twitter, and also if you've got one of these crypto games that you think is the future, let me know, because I always love a good laugh, and I'm sure my audience does as well. It's half the reason they show up. So yeah, see you next time. Peace out.